All right, folks, welcome to another fast ride at CCN. And no, this is not your mommy's TV station, it's your daddy's. And I say that every time, but I'm trying to get a point across because mainstream news media will not cover the real truth of what we speak of here. And that's why the whole planet's been compromised because of the programming across the board. So today we're going to take a little ride. We're going to take a little ride on how the military-industrial construct sucked all these people into this game for the last 200 years, and it's literally a game, folks. All wars, all focus wars, and that's being downloaded as we speak, and it's going to be shared later in the programming, so everybody can watch it in real time, because I want people to get this memo. So there's not going to be any plausible deniability. Because most of the masses, when they get the truth, they just go into cognitive dissonance. They want to shut their mind off and just say, no, that can't be so. Well, that's what I love about that 45-minute video we're going to get to play today. It's going to give you clarity with reference points, dates, times, the 200-year history you never got in grade school. Matter of fact, this should be required watching for all the military-industrial complex. And then we'd be putting our swords into plowshares yesterday. Anyways, I'm getting a little excited because, anyways, look, let's cover a little history. Okay. Brother Peter did time in the military-industrial complex, so he comes from a position of knowledge and a position to actually speak on this subject. So anybody who thinks I'm unpatriotic, too bad. You know what? The patriot myth, that's all that is. It's bullshit. They sold you a lie under the guise of protectionism and waving a freaking flag, but it's a corporate flag for the military construct. And you've been given over. They made my brothers and sisters become a human resource through ignorance and programming. Because I did the time on Maple Drive. I did 10 years in this game as a Navy dog. My job was patching up my boys in green for 8 years. I got to run up and down hills with these guys. And I said, I know I signed a contract that said U.S. Navy, but that's the sea of illusion. I know about that really well now. But anyways, I did my 10 years in. My job was patching them up. See, I went forward, Arianna, with good intent, with the right heart, the right spirit, but they compromised me by selling me, the military salutes and the whole. Anyways, I'm not negative on the military. What I'm doing is I'm trying to correct what has been programmed into our mindset, because we've been mind hacked. And for all you guys that are still serving the military, I hope some of you see this and share this with your brothers and sisters on the planet, because you're nothing but a human resource in their eyes. That's why you're going to get to see this 45-minute video. And if you're from the show me state, I'm going to show you today. If you got the cojones to watch what I'm fixing to bring forward, because the truth is a very hard pill to swallow. And that's the problem with the planet. Gee, he's got to be lying. Why wouldn't they tell me this? But let's take a look at the military-industrial complex for a second. All this grandstanding, all this bullshit, all this war-making, crazy-making behavior, and all these other foreign countries who are on our soil causing us any duress, that should be your checks and balances, because there's nobody trying to attack us on our shores. Yes, yeah, so we should be sitting here just guarding our shores, not overseas in Iraq, Iran, Libya, and all these other Middle Eastern countries, to get them to comply with their democracy scam. By the way, folks, if you don't understand what a democracy is, that's 51% telling 49% what they're eating for supper tonight. Anyways, I get excitable, Arianna, because this is a real passionate subject for me, because I see what I see, and everybody else has got their proverbial blinders on.
That's right.
So
absolutely.
It's time to shake up the mix. Anyways, but let's talk about all this grandstanding in these foreign countries. I'm going to give them a little history lesson. All that crap that's going on in these Middle Eastern countries, there is no Al-Qaeda. Look at CIA, duh, Al-Qaeda. Folks, the boogeyman's bullshit. They fed you another lie. See, but they got you to. So this 911 construct that came down, that was just to get the party started, to put everybody under the guise of protectionism, to get their fear going. To say, yep, there's a boogeyman around every corner. The only boogeyman is the CIA and the government themselves, or the corporate fictions, who are all making profits on the masses' asses across this planet. God, I get pissed off. Anyways, folks, this is my rant. It's my day. I'm going to share the truth. And I'm real passionate about it. I'm not angry, I'm passionate. See, because once you open your eyes and take off your rose crucian colored glasses, you get to get free and unencumbered from this scam, the game. Anyways, if you haven't ever watched anything on 911, folks, a building cannot fall 110 feet, or however many feet that thing was, 1,000 feet, in exactly about 9.3 seconds. We check, and you know, this is the ironic thing, Arianna. The day after 911, Jesse Ventura, the Minnesota governor, was down at ground zero, and he opened his mouth and he said, "Oh, look at the thermite burns on the metal." Now, isn't it ironic that they squirreled away all the scrap metal to a private yard so that the investigators couldn't investigate shit? Then they did this thing called the 911 Commission Report, which is I call the 911 Omission Report, because all the people that spoke the truth over there, it never got in the Commission Report. So, folks, you can reference everything I speak of. I can prove everything I say. So, you know what? So you can call me crazy. But you know what? Yeah, I'm crazy like a fox because I know how to dig up underneath. And by the way, nobody talks about the $2.3 trillion that went missing the day before 911. Can we say bait and switch? Let's get them on a different page while they squirreled away all the gold off underneath those towers that day. Giuliani kissed my ass. What a piece of crap he is. Anyways, yeah, he was on watch. And he was down the day before 911. But let's get back to Jesse Ventura, ex-Navy SEAL. Who would know better about thermite burns than a guy who blows things up and makes them go boom? And then we got Building 7, the arbitrary theft. You know, I was watching the news that day, Arianna. Building 7 was still standing. This goofy girl from the UK, the newscaster, couldn't get her script right. She was 20 minutes early. Oh, there goes Building 7 now, and it was still standing. By the way, it didn't have shit for damage, but let's take a look at that. Now, I'm going to share some stuff today because I'm on a rant today. So let's pull this nasty ass curtain back so we can see the truth of what it really is. Ironically, Silverstein, the one who owned Building 7, had doubled down on his insurance policy 30 days early. I'm really good at finding the money trail, and he doubled down on his policy, made $7 billion off of $3, and his policy was only for $3.5 billion. But 30 days earlier, he doubled down on his policy. Now it gets better. On the day of 911, that clown was on TV. I got the video, and he said, "Pull it." Do you know what pull it means in the vernacular in the land of where they blow up buildings? That's exactly what it means. Pull it means to blow it. So they instigated. It's called agent provocateur. Just like this bullshit that's going on with this crap across the country, and trying to invoke people into a martial law status, get them all excited. What is that jade shit or whatever? Anyways, let's take a look at Vietnam. Agent provocateur. They actually torpedoed their own ship. The admiral that was on watch that day actually came off the dime on his deathbed and told the truth that we blew up our own ship so we could go to Vietnam and start another war. This is proof about all wars are bankers' wars. So they take these resources and they play both sides of the fence, and they're making money on both sides of the fence. And it's not real money. It's money of account, not money of substance. This whole banking stuff. I have some other words for the IMF, and it's not the International Monetary Fund either. But you can put your 2 cents together on exactly what I call them international mofo. You know what I'm saying? Because they're black-hearted, underhanded, have no souls, and they've been doing this game for hundreds of years. So they're masters of the game. So until my brothers and sisters wake up to the game, they're going to be a part of the game. They're going to do a hypothecation event. If you don't know what that is, go look it up, folks. I covered that in my week 3 over at Privatis.Me, hypothecations, what goes on in this game. And it all started in Chicago. They got a bunch of bond slaves tied to this nexus called USA Inc. However, it's being changed very rapidly, Arianna. The poop's out the elephant, for lack of a better term, and they're not going to be able to put it back in. As people are coming back home again, they're getting their titles straightened out because it's just a title. Well, you can fix that. There's always a solution to everything. So guess what? Ironically, I had to create this show called Solutions for the Planet, because this is a planetary shift we're on right now.
That's right.
Anyways, am I getting too excited? I forgot to take my medication today.
Yeah. You're fine.
Anyways, Arianna, I know you're well aware of this. You're another light worker in the game. And
Yeah.
that's what we are, folks. We're shedding light. We brought a bigger flashlight to the scan. So, but like I say, you got to be willing to open your eyes. And the sad part is, Ariana, because of the fluoride, the GMOs, those poisonous shots, and all this other stuff compromising the vessels across the planet, the Operation Slow Kill, it's actually becoming Operation Fast Kill these days.
Most people aren't willing to face the pain and the they're scared. Man is scared. Why? Because they're taught fear.
Yeah. Well, fear, false evidence appearing real.
Exactly.
Take it off, folks. You know what? Redivert your energy somewhere else. Shut off the idiot box. Matter of fact, sell it, burn it, blow it up, because it's a mind hack control machine. And I got the numbers on the patent on the mind control. It's a mind hack machine. By the way, let's talk about when you watch that idiot box, it changes up your theta beta waves, it puts you in a trance, so you can't think straight. But and then they sell you on those medical commercials. But they protect themselves from liability. It says may cause this. They have to, folks. So if you're a numbskull and you go and give your power and consent over to the white coat medicine construct, which they want you to do, you're just another money event. It's all about the damn money. That's all it is. It's just a scam, and they don't want you to be how do you put able to think for yourself.
Enlightened.
Yeah, they want to build. This is that's why we're on the Conscious Consumer Network, because we have to talk about this stuff in real time, the real truth, and all those living in the land of denial. It's not just a river in Egypt. You're gonna have to shake the poop out of their heads and wake up. This is the wake up call for the parent. So I'm real excited that I get to I got the thought in my head 4 days ago. I want to do about all wars or bankers wars, because this is an integral piece of the puzzle. As well as the medical industrial complex is just as thick, it's just as nefarious, it's just as underhanded, and they're making money on both sides of the fence in the game too. Let's talk about our veteran brothers and sisters for a second. They get no care. There is no love. All of it explodes to depleted uranium in these bullshit wars over these countries, and they're all coming back with post-traumatic stress disorder and all these other maladies. But the VA just looks at them, laughs, and sends them on their way. This is how they treat the military-industrial complex. The boys that thought they were doing a good thing but got manipulated into the game, and then they send them packing on their way. And how many of our military brothers and sisters are on the street, homeless, and there's no love? Where is the damn love?
They would rather put their money in with banks and stuff instead of having our vets sleeping out on the street. Why not give that to them and allow them a piece of what they've fought so hard for, or what they were brainwashed to fight for? Instead they have them sleeping out on the streets with no care, and them going crazy because of all the things that they've seen, when it's all an unbalance of energy and they're not paying any attention. It's sad.
Well, let me share my time in the military. I did 78 to 88. I was fortunate enough to not go into any war theater. Notice they call it theater.
Okay.
And notice they call the infantry infants, because they got them all fighting with some false boogeyman. But they created all this. World War II, same shit. World War I, folks. When you're gonna get to watch this 45-minute video, all wars are bankers' wars, and Michael Rivero did a bang-up job on exposing this 200-year history that you're totally unaware of, but you're gonna get the memos today, because Brother Peter decided that time to peel this nasty ass onion all the way back to its rotten core, and let's show the real truth behind this game.
That's right. That's right. And it's a game. And if the people can learn to wake up and see that they're being sheep and see past the illusion, then it won't be a step ahead of the rest of that the light workers were here to do. But they're not heeding the call, and they think that we're crazy. When you see the video and you see the information behind it, how can you not see that the truth behind all that? Everything lines up.
Yep, just like they're trying to marginalize I think it's the 1,500 engineers, structural engineers, who basically got together right after all this happened, and they brought forward irrevocable proofs that a structure cannot burn from a so-called jet crashing into. By the way, it wasn't a jet. Anyways, hey, that's, can you say hologram? I mean, anyways, I bet you they've never heard of Project Bluebeam before. Go look that up, folks. Project Bluebeam. Anyways, it's Tricks is for Kids hours, and they're pulling out all the stops. But 2001 was the predicating moment to bring the game to the next level for control mechanisms. So now you got the CIA capturing every keystroke, hacking your phone calls. I mean, oh, they love me, Arianna. They really love what I'm saying. So, you know what? I don't give a shit. See, I got no fear. What do you want to do? Kill me? I don't give a shit. I'm at that point. You know what? I'll be damned if I'm going to leave this planet the same way I found it for my two beautiful young ones. You know. So you know what? Time to cut the Gordian knot. And you know it's nice because we have the BRICS coming online: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and multiple other countries throwing the yoke off the IMF to kiss their ass. I love it. I think it's way past midnight, and these they're pulling desperate ploys across the planet now. Forced compliance on shots in Australia, in America, the home of the feed. Anyways, it's nuts. Anyways, I know all their tricks. I've been around the block a couple of times. I've exposed this. I post everything on all these things I talk about over at my house, so people can see in real time. You got to be willing to wrap your mind around the truth, and the truth is a hard pill to swallow. But I'm not going to candy coat it, and no, I'm not going to give you a lollipop. I'm going to give you it straight up with both barrels so that you can get the memos. You can reference everything I speak of. I can show you irrevocable proofs across the planet on what I'm sharing.
That's right. That's right. Share them the truth.
Wow, gotta love it.
Yeah.
Let me catch up with you on a TV show. Thanks. Anyways, that's what else happens. Welcome to live TV, folks. Where so, anyways, I've had it. I've had it with the game. I'm changing the vibration. I'm bringing the love vibration on the planet. I know from all this ranting people are hearing right now, that guy is really pissed off. No, I'm pissed off in the eyes. I'm not pissed off, but I run in the heart, so I can bring the vibration of the planet up. So we can. It's all about the truth. You know what? The truth shall set you free.
Sometimes you have to shake them to stir them, Peter. Sometimes you have to be shaken to be stirred to see the truth. I mean, that's just part of it. And if you're not going to do it, and if they're not going to allow their mind to do it, then spirit in the love vibration is going to allow them to see it. And that's why your gateway and your doors being opened, because you're sharing what spirit wants us to know. Plain and simple. The truth. The truth will set you free.
Yeah. Well, if just one guy sees all wars are bankers' wars and keeps us from joining the military-industrial complex for a lousy-ass lucre paycheck,
that's right.
Makes me really happy.
Mm-hmm. All the facts are there. They've just been hidden away from us. We're only taught what we're wanted to know, what they want us to know in school, but then all the other facts to connect the dots along the way. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. You know, the facts are there and they're simple. You just have to put the puzzle together.
Well, I've already put the puzzle together. They just got to follow the bouncing ball. It's all about just go with the flow. And that's why I created an 8-week construct over at my house. It's free for the planet. My 8-week alternative truth curriculum, I call it.
Right.
Start week 1. You get, by the time you get through week 8, you might have your mind right and your heart.
The heart's the biggest thing in love, raising the love vibration. That we all have to get our hearts right, and we have to get it with our mind. And it's not an easy place to go through. And a lot of people, you can't know your darkness. And this is part of facing the darkness to head towards the light.
Yeah. People should go pull up the 8 slavery and the 8 veils. That's a nice 15-minute little overview. So yeah, I'll post it out. You can also go pull up about the programming in the school system. What the hell is her name? She did a really great work. As a matter of fact, she was the head of the educational side of the thing. I think it's Charlene Isabert. Anyways, I got so much stuff in my head. And I read her book. It was about 1,000 pages. I read it 10 years ago about how they programmed since the beginning of the turn of the century to get everybody good compliant slaves, to give over to authority, to not question anything, to shut up, put up, get in line, children, get in line. No, there's a bell. It's like friggin' Pavlov's dog, for crying out loud. We don't allow for independence, thinking outside the box, creativity, energy, transformation to make this planet a better place. We're gonna make you a good employee slave. I mean, you gotta love it. What they do in the schools now, which most people are unaware of. By the time you're a sophomore, they're teaching you how to fill out a damn 1040 to get yourself binded up on the plantation with the IRS. Then by the time you're a senior, because I know somebody in Washington County in Virginia, he was telling me they made him sign up for the voter rolls, and if they didn't, they wouldn't pass the class. Can you say forced compliance? So for all those naysayers who don't think I'm talking the truth, you might want to dig in a little deeper. Yeah, it's just like when you fill out a driver's license. It tells you at the top of the page, you're a vessel in commerce. And if you're a vessel in commerce, you're one of their slaves.
That's right.
Because you aren't get excited.
We all are slaves until we're pulled out, though, and that's part of what we need to realize is that we're all slaves at one point or time. So we all have that contingency as a human being to come together to feel that everybody sees little things. Everything goes hand in hand, but they don't want to pay attention to them and they knock them off as coincidence. Nothing's coincidence. The universe supplies all of that for you and gives you the gateway, but it's your decision, freedom of choice, on whether you're going to enlighten yourself or not.
No. Anyways, yeah, you keep fading to red. It's all good. We're going to get this done today. Anyways, on that note, so, but let's take a look at some other aspects of this construct that they call planet Earth. Let's see, on the religiosity, yeah, they got everybody genuflecting and giving over their essence, their power to this construct, this false construct called religion. They're all 501c3 whores, and they're all tied to the state. So guess what? You're a state slave. Because there's no separation of church and state. They got you lock, stock, and barrel from birth because your given name they bastardize and make it a corporation, a franchisee for the construct called USA Inc. When you sign up on the voter rolls, you just stepped on in. For benefits and privileges, you have no rights. For all these people grandstanding, the patriot groups, get the shit out of your brains because guess what? You're a good slave. You're the best slave. You know what the best slave is? One who doesn't even know he's a slave. But I can prove up everything I do. If they go to the 8-week curriculum I've given away to the planet for free, it'll allow them to turn back the curtain. I'll give them irrevocable proof on that level. I got a 5-page document that speaks on how when you give over on the voter rolls, how you've given over your power and consent, and now they have power of attorney. Same with all these other things they have to line up with. But I don't want everybody to be crashing and burning because there is a solution side to this whole damn game. And that's where I'm really excited. Because there's hope. It's not just hope. It's not false hope. They know the jig is up. They know they've been found out. Matter of fact, I got a seminar going on in the next couple of weeks on the planet where we get to share the love and break forward these alternative constructs that can fix this problem and cut this damn Gordian knot because you're just a title. They got you by the short hair because you're a title. When you go into their court games, that's why you don't win. Because you're basically getting drafted for performance behind closed doors. They're writing up the bid bond, performance bond, payment bond. Go look it up, folks. You don't have to go look it up. Just go over to my page on week 3. I cover and I list all the bonds. So if I'm wrong, you can show me where I'm wrong. But it's compartmentalized. It's ugly. It's black. It's dark. They call it ecclesiastical black magic for a reason. That's why the bitch in a black dress says, "All rise." Welcome, folks. They bring you back from the dead for so that you can put your res on a piece of paper. It's a flat black line, but you become alive when you got your little cursive cursing yourself and signing over, giving over your res, your energy to this construct. It's ironic, Arianna. Everybody needs to go look up the courthouse down in Miami, Florida, and it's shaped like a boat. Why is that? Because that's the Sea of Illusion. When you walk into it, They're there to do business with you and compromise your vessel. You're actually under letters of Marquean reprisal. They can plunder your citizenship because you're an unmarked vessel in their territory, and you walked in, and they get to sink your battleship. Sort of like that game that came out back in the 60s. He sunk my battleship. Well, they're highway pirates, and guess what? The pirates are pirating you. But that's all right. There's a solution to that side of the equation, too. I'm not going to talk about it here, but they'll go to the 8-week curriculum. They'll get all the information they can.
That's right. You're leading a lot of people to the light, Peter, as we all are. People have to remember who they are, and they're not willing to go through the waking up process. But you all will. And Mother Earth is creating that as well. She's pushing us to do that as well. She is incarnating herself and bringing herself to a higher vibration, and we're going to choose. Are we going to stay, or are we going to go?
It sounds like okay. The upside is, guess what? We have the 45-minute video ready for everybody's consumption. So I think I did a pretty damn good segue. You and I will get up and compare notes after this runs. But folks, stand fast. I want you to watch this 45-minute video. All wars are bankers' wars. We need a history lesson that you need to share with all your brothers and sisters across the planet, and you'll have clarity above reproach. Anyways, brother Biggie, run it. It's all good.
Gentlemen, we have called you together to inform you that we are going to overthrow the United States government. You still think that jet fuel brought down the World Trade Center? Does anybody else see a problem here? If the government has nothing to hide, why are they so afraid to answer a few questions? This story does not add up. Don't listen to me. Listen to your head. Don't listen. Don't listen to anything they say.
Now, I want to share a story with you, and this is actually an article that I wrote over the weekend called All Wars Are Bankers' Wars. And I went in, I did a lot of research. It's posted to the front page of whatreallyhappened.com. I understand it's already gone viral. It's being reposted around the web. But I wanted to basically tell it to you here on the radio show. And it's a very long story. We're probably going to take the rest of the hour to do it. But it's something that you need to understand, that all of these wars and assassinations that we're told are crazed lone nut assassins or weapons of mass destruction or bringing democracy, all of them track back to the private central bankers as the initiating event. And the more you study this, the more you will realize all the wars are wars for the bankers, for the private central bankers. And I know a lot of people are going to have difficulty comprehending this, just how many of these wars we have fought as a nation were fought for no other purpose than to force private central banks onto nations that did not want them. So we're going to have a few examples so you understand why at this particular time in history the United States government is mired in so many wars against so many foreign nations. And there's plenty of precedents for this. Now, going back to the beginning, the United States fought the American Revolution primarily over King George III's Currency Act, which forced the colonists to abandon their own government-issued currencies and conduct business only using printed banknotes borrowed at interest from the Bank of England. If you go back to the writings of Ben Franklin, direct quote, the refusal of King George III to allow the colonies to operate an honest money system which freed the ordinary man from the clutches of the money manipulators was probably the prime cause of the revolution. That's Ben Franklin. Now, our public schools don't teach that because you're not supposed to know that the bankers were really behind the American Revolution. After the Revolution, the United States adopted a revolutionary, radically different economic system in which the government issued its own value-based currency so that private banks couldn't skim the wealth of the people through interest-bearing banknotes. So the American Revolution was fought primarily to free the American people from King George III's Currency Act, which ordered them to conduct all business using printed banknotes borrowed at interest from the Bank of England. So the Bank of England was just, raking in wealth from the labor of the American people. in exchange for ink and paper. And that fueled the anger that led to the American Revolution. Your public schools don't spend a lot of time on that, but that was really what it was all about. So the revolution was over, the United States was born, but the private bankers are nothing if not dedicated to their schemes to acquire other people's wealth, and they knew full well how easy it is to corrupt a nation's leaders. Now, just 1 year after Mayor Amschel Rothschild had uttered his infamous, "Let me issue and control the nation's money, and I care not who makes the laws," private bankers succeeded in setting up a new private central bank called the First Bank of the United States, largely through the efforts of the Rothschilds' chief supporter in the United States, Alexander Hamilton. Now, this First Bank of the United States was founded in 1791, and by the end of its 20-year charter, the First Bank of the United States had almost ruined the nation's economy while enriching the bank's owners. As a result, Congress refused to renew the charter and signaled their intention to go back to a state-issued, value-based currency on which the people paid no interest at all to any banker. This resulted in a threat from Nathan Mayer Rothschild against the U.S. government. Quote, "Either the application for renewal of the charter is granted, or the United States will find itself involved in a most disastrous war." End quote. Congress still refused to renew the charter for the First Bank of the United States, whereupon Nathan Mayer Rothschild railed, quote, "Teach those impudent Americans a lesson. Bring them back to colonial status." End quote. Financed by the Rothschild-controlled Bank of England, Britain then launched the War of 1812 to recolonize the United States and force them back into the slavery of the Bank of England's banknotes, or to plunge the United States into so much debt they would be forced to accept a new private central bank. And the plan worked. Even though the United States won the War of 1812, Congress was forced to grant a new charter for yet another private bank, issuing the public currency as loans at interest, the Second Bank of the United States. Once again, private bankers were in control of the nation's money supplied and cared not who made the laws or how many British or American soldiers had to die for it. So once again, the nation was plunged into debt, unemployment, poverty by the predations of the private central bank, and in 1832, Andrew Jackson successfully campaigned for his second term as president under the slogan, "Jackson and no bank." True to his word, Jackson succeeded in blocking the renewal of the charter for the Second Bank of the United States of America. And this was where that famous quote came from Andrew Jackson. Quote, "Gentlemen, I too have been a close observer of the doings of the Bank of the United States. I have had men watching you for a long time, and I am convinced that you've used the funds of the banks to speculate in the breadstuffs of the country. When you won, you divided the profits amongst you, and when you lost, you charged it to the bank. You tell me that if I take the deposits from the bank and annul the charter, I shall ruin 10,000 families. That may be true, gentlemen, but that is your sin. Should I let you go on, you will ruin 50,000 families, and that would be my sin. You are a den of vipers and thieves. I've determined to rout you out, and by the eternal God, I will rout you out." End quote. Andrew Jackson. Shortly after the charter for the Second Bank of the United States expired, there was an assassination attempt on Andrew Jackson, and it failed when both pistols used by the assassin, Richard Lawrence, failed to fire. Later on, Lawrence explained the motive for the assassination by saying that with President Jackson dead, money would be more plenty. So it was an assassination motivated by the interests of the bankers. Now, our public school system is as subservient to the bankers' wishes to keep certain history from you, just as the corporate media is subservient to Monsanto's wishes to keep the dangers of GMOs from you, and the global warming cult's wishes to conceal from you the fact that Earth has actually been cooling for the last 16 years. So it should probably be no surprise that the financial dimension of the Civil War are not well known to the average American. It's portrayed in our history books and our popular media as an internal dispute over slavery, but in fact it was a war with global implications. When the Confederacy seceded from the United States, the bankers once again saw the opportunity for a rich harvest of debt and offered to fund Lincoln's efforts to bring the South back into the Union at 30% interest. Lincoln remarked that he would not free the black man by enslaving the white man to the bankers, and using his authority as president, issued a new government currency, the greenback. This was a direct threat to the wealth and power of the central bankers, who quickly responded. This is a quote from the London Times following Lincoln's issuance of the greenbacks. Quote, "If this mischievous financial policy, which has its origin in North America, shall become indurated down to a fixture, then that government will furnish its own money without cost. It will pay off debts and be without debt. It will have all the money necessary to carry on its commerce. It will become prosperous without precedent in the history of the world. The brains and wealth of all countries will go to North America. That country must be destroyed, or it will destroy every monarchy on the globe. So, goaded by the private bankers, much of Europe supported the Confederacy against the Union, with the expectation that victory over Lincoln would mean the end of the greenback. France and Britain seriously considered an outright invasion on the United States in support of the Confederacy, but they were held at bay by Russia. A little bit of history most Americans don't understand. Russia came to the aid of Lincoln's Union during this crisis. Now, at that time, Russia had just ended their serfdom system, and they had a state central bank similar to the system the United States had been founded on. Now, free of European intervention, the Union won the war, and Lincoln announced his intention to go on issuing the greenbacks. Following Lincoln's assassination, the greenbacks were pulled from circulation and the American people forced to go back to an economy based on banknotes borrowed at interest from the private bankers. So finally, in 1913, the private central bankers of Europe, in particular the Rothschilds of Great Britain, the Warburgs of Germany, met with their American financial collaborators on Jekyll Island, Georgia, to form a new banking cartel with the express purpose of forming the third bank of the United States, with the aim of placing complete control of the United States money supply once again under the control of private bankers. Owing to hostility over the previous banks of the United States, the name of this third bank was changed to the Federal Reserve in order to grant the new bank a quasi-governmental image. But in fact, it is a privately owned bank. It's no more federal than Federal Express. In fact, last year, the Federal Reserve successfully rebuffed a Freedom of Information lawsuit by Bloomberg News on the grounds that as a private banking corporation, and not actually a part of the U.S. government, the Freedom of Information Act did not apply to the operators of the Federal Reserve. So 1913 proved to be a transformative year for the nation's economy. First, with Congress' passage of the 16th Income Tax Amendment and the false claim it had been ratified. Here's another direct quote. I think if you were to go back and try and find and review the ratification for the 16th Amendment, which was the internal revenue, the income tax, I think if you went back and examined that carefully, you would find that a sufficient number of states never ratified that amendment, end quote. That's U.S. District Court Judge James C. Fox in Sullivan versus United States, 2003. Later that same year, 1913, and apparently unwilling to risk another questionable amendment, Congress passed the Federal Reserve Act over the Christmas holiday in 1913, while members of Congress opposed to the measure were at home. This was a very underhanded deal, as the Constitution explicitly vests Congress with the authority to issue the public currency, does not authorize its delegation, and thus would have required a new amendment to transfer that authority to a private bank. But pass it, Congress did, and President Woodrow Wilson signed it as he promised the bankers he would in exchange for generous campaign contributions. Now, President Wilson later regretted that decision. You've probably heard this quote before, but you're going to get it again. Quote, "I am a most unhappy man. I have unwittingly ruined my country. A great industrial nation is now controlled by its system of credit. We are no longer a government by free opinion, no longer a government by conviction and the vote of the majority, but a government by the opinion and duress of a small group of dominant men." That was Woodrow Wilson writing in 1919. Now, 1 year after the passage of the Federal Reserve Act, World War I started, and it is important to remember that prior to the creation of the Federal Reserve, there was no such thing as a world war. Now, World War I actually started between Austria, Hungary, and Serbia, but quickly shifted to focus on Germany. Why Germany? They didn't start the war. Why was Germany the villain in World War I? Well, the real reason was their industrial capacity was seen as an economic threat to Great Britain. Great Britain's pound was already in decline at the time because too much economic emphasis was on banking and finance, and not enough was on agricultural development, industrial development, and infrastructure. It's very much like the situation we have in the United States right now. All the financial operatives, they want to play the Wall Street games, and other parts of the economy are being neglected. We've lost a great deal of our manufacturing. We're not the agricultural exporter we used to be because everybody's over there at Wall Street playing in that giant open-air casino. Now, pre-war Germany did have a private central bank, but it was under strict control by the German government to keep inflation at reasonable levels and to make sure that all of the German economy was being properly funded, just like Putin did with their central bank about a month ago. Under government control, by the German government, investment was guaranteed to internal economic development, and as a result, Germany had become a major manufacturing technological power. They were exporting products that Great Britain could not compete with. So in the media of the day, Germany was portrayed as the main opponent of World War I. And not just defeated, it was flattened. Now, following the Treaty of Versailles, Germany was ordered to pay the war costs of all the participating nations, even though Germany had not started that war. This amounted to 3 times the value of all of Germany itself. Germany's private central bank, to which the German government had gone deeply into debt to pay the cost of the wars, was allowed to break free of government control. That led to the massive inflation of the Weimar Republic, followed, permanently trapping the German people in endless debt. And money speculators were running rampant, and it led to these situations where you had literally a whole basket full of paper notes to get a loaf of bread. Now, when the Weimar Republic collapsed economically, it opened the door for the National Socialists to take power. Their first financial move was to issue their own state currency, which was not borrowed from private central banks. It was based on a unit of value, not a unit of debt. Freed from having to pay interest on the money in circulation, Germany blossomed and quickly began to rebuild its industry. It was an amazing transformation to see. The media called it the German miracle. Time magazine lionized Hitler for the amazing improvement of life for the German people and the explosion of German industry, and they even named him Time magazine's Man of the Year in 1938. And then once again, Germany's prosperity and freedom from a private central bank loaning the public currency at interest became a threat to other nations and other powers. I have a couple of quotes here from Winston Churchill that tells you what was really going through the minds of Europe in the years leading up to World War II. Quote, "Should Germany merchandise again," which means do business, "should Germany merchandise again in the next 50 years, we have led this war, World War I, in vain." That was Winston Churchill writing in the Times in 1919. Another quote, "We will force this war upon Hitler if he wants it or not," end quote. Winston Churchill in a 1936 radio broadcast. Quote, "Germany becomes too powerful. We have to crush it," end quote. Winston Churchill in November 1936 speaking to U.S. General Robert Wood. Quote, "This war is an English war, and its goal is the destruction of Germany." Winston Churchill, autumn 1939 broadcast. So it was all about economics and profitability. Now, Germany's state-issued value-based currency was also a direct threat to the wealth and power of the private central banks around the world. And as early as 1933, they started to organize a global boycott against Germany to strangle this upstart ruler who thought he could run his nation without a private central bank. Now, as had been the case in World War I, Great Britain and other nations threatened by Germany's economic power looked for an excuse to go to war. And as public anger in Germany grew over the boycott, Hitler foolishly gave them that excuse. Years later, in a spirit of candor, the real reasons for the war were made clear. Quote, "The war wasn't only about abolishing fascism, but to conquer sales markets. We could have, if we had intended so, prevented this war from breaking out without doing one shot, but we didn't want to." End quote. Winston Churchill to Harry Truman, March 1946. One more quote here. Quote, "Germany's unforgivable crime before World War II was its attempt to loosen its economy out of the world trade system and to build up an independent exchange system from which the world finance couldn't profit anymore. We butchered the wrong pig." End quote. Winston Churchill writing in his book, The Second World War. Now, a little side note, we're going to actually step back in time to the years before World War II. A little bit of history a lot of Americans are still completely unaware of. And it involves a gentleman by the name of Marine Corps Major General Smedley Butler. In 1933, Wall Street bankers and financiers had bankrolled the successful rise to power of Hitler and Mussolini. Brown Brothers Harriman in New York, and they're still there. I saw them when I was there for the 9/11 anniversary. They were financing Hitler right up to the day war was declared with Germany. And these Wall Street financiers decided that a fascist dictatorship in the United States, based on the one Mussolini had in Italy, was going to be far better for their business interests than Roosevelt's New Deal, which threatened massive wealth redistribution to recapitalize the working and middle classes of America. So the Wall Street tycoons recruited General Butler to lead the overthrow of the U.S. government and install a Secretary of General Affairs who would be answerable to Wall Street and not the people, would crush social unrest and shut down all the labor unions. General Butler pretended to go along with the scheme, but then exposed the plot to Congress. So they recruited Marine Corps Major General Smedley Butler to lead this coup d'etat, because Butler was very popular with the soldiers, and his image as part of this move would help convince the military this was the right thing to do. Now, to his credit, Major General Smedley Butler, remembering his oath to the Constitution, pretended to go along with the scheme, but then exposed the plot to the United States Congress. Congress, then as now in the pocket of Wall Street bankers, refused to act. When Roosevelt learned of the planned coup, he demanded the arrest of the plotters, but the plotters simply reminded Roosevelt that if any one of them were sent to prison, their friends on Wall Street would deliberately collapse the still fragile U.S. economy and blame Roosevelt for it. So Roosevelt was unable to do anything about this attempted coup d'etat until the start of World War II, at which time he prosecuted many of the plotters under the Trading with the Enemy Act. Now, mostly it was glossed over. Oh, it's just a rumor, unfounded, it's wacko conspiracy theory. But in 1967, the congressional minutes of Smedley Butler's revelation to Congress of the coup were finally released to the public. You ever see this movie 7 Days in May, Kirk Douglas and Burt Lancaster, about an attempted military takeover of the United States of America? It was based loosely on this story. But of course, in the movie, the bankers being behind the Burt Lancaster character was completely removed from the script here. Now, Smedley Butler is also famous for writing a work called War is a Racket, and I would like to read you a quote from that. Quote, I spent 33 years and 4 months in active military service as a member of our country's most agile military force, the Marine Corps. I served in all commissioned ranks from second lieutenant to major general. And during that period, I spent more of my time being a high-class muscle man for big business, for Wall Street, and for the bankers. In short, I was a racketeer, a gangster for capitalism. I suspected I was just part of a racket at the time. Now I'm sure of it. Like all members of the military profession, I never had an original thought until after I left the service. My mental faculties remained in suspended animation while I obeyed the orders of the higher-ups. This is typical with everyone in the military service. Thus, I helped make Mexico and especially Tampico safe for American oil interests in 1914. I helped make Haiti and Cuba a decent place for the National City Bank boys to collect revenues in. I helped in the raping of half a dozen Central American republics for the benefit of Wall Street. The record of racketeering is long. I helped purify Nicaragua for the International Banking House of Brown Brothers in 1909 through 1912. I brought light to the Dominican Republic for American sugar interests in 1916. In China in 1927, I helped see to it that the Standard Oil went its way unmolested. During those years, I had, as the boys in the back room would say, a swell racket. I was rewarded with honors, medals, and promotion. Looking back on it, I feel I might have given Al Capone a few hints. The best he could do was operate his racket in 3 city districts. I operated on 3 continents. General Smedley Butler, former U.S. Marine Corps Commandant, and he wrote that in 1935. So, now moving forward here. As president, John Fitzgerald Kennedy understood the predatory nature of private central banking. He understood why Andrew Jackson fought so hard to end the second bank of the United States. So Kennedy wrote and signed Executive Order 11110, which ordered the U.S. Treasury to issue a new public currency called the United States Note. Now, Kennedy's United States notes were not borrowed from the Federal Reserve. They were created by the U.S. government and backed by the silver stockpiles held by the U.S. government. It represented a return to the system of economics the United States had been founded on, and it was perfectly legal for Kennedy to do so under the Constitution. All told, some $4.5 billion went into the public circulation, which eroded interest payments to the Federal Reserve and loosened their control over the nation. 5 months after signing Executive Order 11110, John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas, and the United States notes pulled from circulation and destroyed. Following Kennedy's assassination, John J. McCloy, president of the Chase Manhattan Bank and president of the World Bank, was named to the Warren Commission. Now, I don't care how good a banker he is, he's not qualified to be investigating a murder, which is what we were told the Warren Commission was all about, to get the truth of the assassination. But we all know that the Warren Commission was there to cover up what was going on, and obviously we can presume safely that John J. McCloy's presence on the Warren Commission was to make sure the American public never got even a hint of the financial dimensions behind the assassination. So, as we enter the 11th year of what I am certain future history will most certainly describe as World War III, we need to examine the financial dimensions behind all these wars. Why are we here? Why are our children being killed and crippled? Is this another war for the profit of the private central bankers? And the answer is yes. Now, toward the end of World War II, when it became obvious that the Allies were going to win and dictate the post-war political environment, the major world economic powers met at Bretton Woods, a luxury resort in New Hampshire, in July of 1944, and they hammered out the Bretton Woods Agreement for international finance. The British pound lost its position as the global trade and reserve currency to the U.S. dollar. There are indications this was part of the price demanded by Roosevelt in exchange for the U.S. entry into the war. Now, absent the economic advantages of being the world's go-to currency, Britain was forced to nationalize their Bank of England in 1946. The Bretton Woods Agreement, ratified in 1945, in addition to making the dollar the global reserve and trade currency, obligated the signatory nations to tie their currencies to the dollar. The nations that ratified Bretton Woods did so on two conditions. The first was that the Federal Reserve would refrain from overprinting the dollar, basically as a means to loot real products and produce from other nations in exchange for ink and paper. It basically was an imperial tax imposed by the U.S. economic system on the rest of the world. That assurance of no overprinting was supposedly backed up by the second requirement, which was that the U.S. dollar would always be convertible back to gold by the U.S. government at $35 an ounce. Now, of course, the Federal Reserve, being a private bank and not answerable to the U.S. government, did in fact start overprinting paper dollars, which were sent to other nations around the world, and under Bretton Woods, they had to send back products and produce and raw materials at full value. And much of the perceived American prosperity of the 1950s and 60s was the result of these foreign nations having to send real raw materials, goods, produce, back to the United States in exchange for these little pieces of paper with ink all over them, because they were forced to accept these paper notes as being worth $35 per ounce of gold. Then in 1970, France started looking at this huge pile of printed paper notes sitting in their bank vaults, for which real French products like wine and cheese had been traded, and it notified the United States government that they would exercise their option under Bretton Woods to return all those paper notes for gold at the agreed-upon $35 per ounce exchange rate. The problem was the United States had nowhere near the gold to redeem all those paper notes. So on August 15, 1971, Richard Nixon temporarily, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, say no more, suspended gold convertibility of the U.S. Federal Reserve notes. This Nixon shock, as it was termed at the time, effectively ended Bretton Woods, and many global currencies started to delink from the U.S. dollar. And it created another problem, because the United States had been collateralizing their loans, money borrowed from other governments and foreign investors, with the American nation's gold reserves. And with the awareness that there wasn't enough gold to redeem all the Federal Reserve notes, lenders to the U.S. were starting to wonder, did the U.S. government have enough gold to collateralize their outstanding debts? Foreign nations began to get very nervous about the loans to the United States, and they were understandably reluctant to loan any additional money without some form of collateral. So what Richard Nixon did is he founded the environmental movement with the EPA and its various programs like wilderness zones and roadless areas and heritage rivers, wetlands, and all these other little different programs, which all took vast areas of public lands and made them off limits to the American people, who are technically the owner of all those lands. But Nixon had no concern for the environment, and the real purpose of this land grab, under the guise of the environment, was to pledge those pristine lands and their vast mineral resources as collateral on the outstanding national debt. The multitude of all these different programs was simply to conceal the scale of the land grab and collateralization of the American people's heritage. And it actually today covers almost 25% of the entire nation, is now locked up by these EPA programs and pledged as collateral on government borrowing. Now, with open lands, available lands for collateralization already in short supply, the U.S. government embarked on a new program to shore up sagging international demand for the dollar. The United States approached the world's oil-producing nations, mostly in the Middle East, and offered them a deal. In exchange for only selling their oil for dollars, the United States would guarantee the military safety of those oil-rich nations. The oil-rich nations would agree to spend and invest their U.S. paper dollars inside the United States, particularly in U.S. Treasury bonds, which would be redeemable through future generations of U.S. taxpayers. The concept was labeled the petrodollar. In effect, the United States, no longer able to back the dollar with gold, was now backing it with oil, other people's oil. And that necessity to keep control over those oil nations to prop up the dollar has dominated America's foreign policy in the region ever since. But as America's manufacturing and agriculture has declined, the oil-producing nations faced a dilemma. Like France, they've got piles and piles of these paper notes and treasury bonds piling up in their vaults, and there really wasn't all that much except real estate they wanted to buy from the United States of America. Europe's cars and aircraft were superior and less costly. In more recent times, America's experiment with GMO food crops has led a lot of nations to simply avoid buying U.S. agricultural exports. Israel's constant belligerence against its neighbors has caused the oil-producing nations to wonder if the U.S. could actually keep their end of the petrodollar arrangement. So oil-producing nations started to talk of selling their oil for whatever currency the purchasers wanted to pay. Iraq, already somewhat hostile to the United States following Desert Storm, demanded the right to sell their oil for euros in 2000. In 2002, the United Nations agreed that Iraq had a right to sell their oil for euros under the Oil for Food program. 1 year later, 2003, the United States reinvaded Iraq, lynched Saddam Hussein, and placed Iraq's oil back on the world market, only available for U.S. dollars. Now, the clear U.S. policy shift following 9/11, away from at least attempting to appear to be an impartial broker of peace in the Mideast to one of unquestioned support for Israel's aggressions, only further eroded confidence in the petrodollar deal, and even more oil-producing nations started openly talking of trading their oil for other global currencies. So over in Libya, Muammar Gaddafi had instituted a state central bank and a value-based trade currency, the gold dinar. Gaddafi then announced that Libya's oil was for sale, but only for the gold dinar. Other African nations, seeing the rise of the gold dinar and the euro, even as the U.S. dollar continued its inflation-driven decline, flocked to the new Libyan currency for trade. This move had the potential to seriously undermine the global hegemony of the dollar. French President Nicolas Sarkozy reportedly went so far as to call Libya a threat to the financial security of the world. So the United States invaded Libya under the guise of supporting a popular rebellion. They brutally murdered Gaddafi, apparently because the object lesson of Saddam's lynching had not been enough of a message, imposed a private central bank, and returned Libya's oil output to dollars only. The gold that was supposed to be made into the gold dinars, as of the last report I could find, unaccounted for. Now, according to General Wesley Clark, the master plan for the dollarification of the world's oil nations included 7 targets: Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Iran. Venezuela, which has started selling their oil to China for the yuan, seems to be a late addition. What is notable about those original 7 nations targeted by the U.S. is that none of them are members of the Bank of International Settlements. This is the private central banker's private central bank located in Switzerland. That meant that those 7 targeted nations were deciding for themselves how to run their nation's economies rather than submitting to the international private central bankers. Now, of course, the bankers' gun sights are on Iran, which dares to have a government central bank and sell their oil for whatever currency they choose. The war agenda for Iran is, as always, to force Iran's oil to be sold only for dollars and to force them to accept a privately owned central bank. Now, you have been raised by a public school system and a media that constantly assures you that the reasons for all these wars and assassinations are many and varied. We're bringing democracy to the conquered lands. We hear that a lot. When actually the U.S. hasn't. The usual result of a U.S. overthrow is the imposition of a pro-business, pro-Wall Street, pro-U.S. dictatorship. Good example, the 1953 CIA overthrow of Iran's democratically elected government of Mohammad Mossadegh and the imposition of the Shah. Or the 1973 CIA overthrow of Chile's elected government of President Salvador Allende and the imposition of the dictator Augusto Pinochet. Another one of the excuses we'll get is we have to save the people from a cruel oppressor. That's the one they're using in Syria right now. Revenge for 9/11. That was a big one going into Iraq. And then later on, President Bush was caught on video saying, no, Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. And behind all of them, that tired, worn-out, catch-all excuse for invasion, weapons of mass destruction. Assassinations are always passed off as crazed lone nuts to obscure the real agenda. And the real agenda of the bankers is very simple. It is enslavement of the people by creation of a false sense of obligation. Now, that obligation is false because the private central banking system by design creates more debt than money with which to pay the debt. There is no way out the way it's set up. It's impossible to escape as long as you're playing by their rules. And you need to understand, private central banking is not science. It is a religion. It's a set of arbitrary rules created to benefit the priesthood, meaning the bankers, and it is supported only because people believe this is the way it's supposed to be. It is a religion. It's a set of arbitrary rules created to benefit the priesthood, meaning the owners of the private central banks. The fraud persists with often lethal results only because the people are brainwashed into believing that this is the way life is supposed to be, and no alternative exists or should even be dreamt of. Now, this same approach, the same brainwashing, was true of two earlier systems of enslavement, rule by divine right and slavery, both systems built to trick people into obedience, and both now recognized by modern civilization as illegitimate. So now we are on the verge of a new era in history where we will recognize that rule by debt, rule by private central bankers issuing the public currency as a loan at interest is equally illegitimate. It only works as long as people allow themselves to believe that this is the way life is supposed to be. But you need to understand something that's the core of the issue. Private central banks do not exist to serve the people, the community, or the nation. Private central banks exist to serve their owners, to make them rich beyond the dreams of Midas, and all for the cost of ink, paper, and the right bribe to the right official, and the occasional assassination. But behind all these wars and all these assassinations, the 100 million plus horrible deaths from all of these wars, lies a single policy of financial dictatorship. The private central bankers only allow rulers to rule, only on the promise that the people of a nation be enslaved to the private central banks. Rulers who do not go along with that will be killed, their nation invaded by those other nations still enslaved to the private central banks. The bankers themselves don't fight these wars. Their children are not in these wars. A nation tries to break free of the private central bankers like Libya. All the other nations under the bankers' control pile on and destroy them. This so-called clash of civilizations you are being told about by the corporate media, it's really a war between banking systems, with the private central bankers forcing themselves onto the rest of the world, no matter how many millions must die for it. The constant hate-mongering against Muslims you see in the corporate media lies in a simple fact. Like the ancient Christians, prior to the Knights Templars, Muslims forbid usury or the lending of money at interest because they saw in ancient times, like Rome, how these banking practices could destroy an entire society. And that is the reason our government media insists that Muslims have to be hated and killed and converted. They refuse to submit to currencies loaned at interest. They refuse to be debt slaves. That makes them a threat to the natural order of the world, the new world order of global fascist dictatorship. So, off to war your children must go to spill their blood for the money junkies' gold. We barely survived the last two world wars. Now we're going into the third one in the nuclear bioweapon age. That is very dangerous. We have to ask ourselves, are the private central bankers willing to risk incinerating the whole planet to feed their greed? Apparently so. You as parents, as siblings, as spouses, need to ask yourself, do you really want to see your loved ones in uniform, killed and crippled, all for a bank balance sheet? But the whole point of this article, the whole point of what I'm sharing with you today, and this is all history, you can go out and hunt it down for yourself. Behind all the flag waving, behind all the propaganda, behind the crazed lone nut assassins, weapons of mass destruction, all of the modern wars this nation have fought are wars by and for the private bankers, fought and bled for by third parties unaware of the true reason they're expected to gracefully accept being killed and crippled for. And the process is quite simple. We've explained it before on this show. As soon as the private central bank issues its currency as a loan at interest, the public is forced deeper and deeper into debt. When the people are reluctant to borrow anymore, that's when the Keynesian economists demand the government borrow more to keep the pyramid scheme working. When both the people and the government refuse to borrow anymore, that is when the large wars get started, to plunge everyone even deeper to debt to pay for the war, and then after the war to borrow even more to rebuild. And when these horrible wars are over, the ordinary people have basically what they had before the war, except their graveyards are a lot larger, and everyone is in debt to the private bankers for the next century. That is why Brown Brothers Harriman in New York was funding the rise of Adolf Hitler, because war is the bankers' richest harvest. We all need to recognize this is what all these wars have been about. Private central banking, enlarging their domain, imposing their will on nations that do not want it, imposing their system on the rulers of nations who do not want it. Bribery, blackmail, assassination, they will do anything to maintain their stranglehold on the productivity of the world's people. And as long as private central banks are allowed to exist, inevitably, as the night follows the day, there will be poverty, hopelessness, millions of deaths in endless world wars until the earth itself is sacrificed in flames to Mammon. The path to true world peace lies in the abolishment of all private central banking everywhere, and a return to the state-issued, value-based currencies that allow nations and people to become prosperous through their own labor and development and efforts. Now, I mentioned the Knights Templars. Prior to the Knights Templars, Christianity, like Islam, forbade usury because Christianity, much of Orthodox Christianity, came out of Rome, and they had seen firsthand what debt-based economies do, even to the Roman Empire. They'd seen it firsthand. So they had a ban on usury. And the Knights Templars were able to basically either bribe or blackmail the Pope to get a special dispensation that allowed them to rent money, is what they called it. They didn't call it usury, they called it renting money. A lot of modern predatory banking practices were pioneered by the Knights Templars. And they plunged Europe into hopelessly unpayable debt until finally French King Philip IV, otherwise known as Philip the Fair, did the only solution he could do, because he understood as long as you believed in the rules of the bankers, as long as you played by the rules they created to serve themselves, you are hopelessly trapped. And so Philip thought outside the box, and I know he's demonized for it, but in looking at the history of the Templars, it was his last resort. He sent messages to all of the regions in France, secret orders on the same time, in the same moment, on the same day. All of the Templars were arrested, and their commanderies, which is what they called their banks, were broken into, looking for looted wealth. They didn't find a lot of it. It was a paper empire, just like the Federal Reserve is. It's all based on paper. There's nothing of any real value there. It's all paper notes. And he sent the Templars to prison and execution, except for Scotland and Portugal, where the Pope and King Philip IV really didn't have a lot of control. I think that the governments of the world, looking at the situation, looking how close we are to seeing this current world conflict emerge into a full-blown global thermonuclear war, that maybe they need to start thinking about the wisdom of King Philip the Fair and say it's time to simply grab all these private central bankers all at the same time so they can't simply skedaddle from one nation to another and come back and try the same thing again, as they will inevitably do, because these people are addicts. They're hopelessly addicted to other people's money. It's why we call them money junkies. When we see somebody who's addicted to cocaine or methamphetamine or heroin, and we can easily see how they're destroying their home and community around them. Now we need to look at these money addicts and look at how they're destroying the entire world around them. And it's time for an intervention. It's time for us to become private central banking heretics, to stop believing that this is the way life is supposed to be, because it isn't. It isn't even the way the United States was actually started. And they're trying as hard. Look at the destruction of our nation. We used to be the world's greatest nation. Now the most generous estimate is we're down to number 16 and still falling. And yet, despite the destruction to our nation, its infrastructure, its children, its quality of medical care, the quality of its manufacturing output, we still are compelled somehow to go out and force this same banking system onto the rest of the world at the point of a bayonet. Does that make any sense at all? Not to a rational human being. To a money junkie, yeah, it's perfect. But we're really at a crisis point in history. And the first step to resolving that crisis, to not let it go any further into a potential nuclear war, is to recognize that private central banking, ruled by manufactured illusion of debt, is no more legitimate a system of governance than rule by divine right or rule by slavery. We all need to recognize the true cause of all the pain and suffering and wars. It's not the terrorists, it's not Al-Qaeda. These are just distractions and set pieces put in front of your eyes so you can't see the very clear pattern behind much of modern human history. It's a war of banking systems, with the predatory private central banks seeking to eradicate any nation and any ruler that would dare try and operate their economy outside the control of the private central bankers. That's the real cause for the war. Is it something you're willing to fight and die for, to support these private central bankers? Is it something you're willing to let your sons and daughters and brothers and sisters be blown to bloody bits for, so the money junkies can have their latest fix, just a little tiny bit more gold or a little larger number on the bottom of that brokerage statement, so they can have today's thrill, their fix of money that is bought with the blood of your children? I don't think so. But the time has come to point out what really is the cause of all causes behind all the wars and suffering that our planet is having to endure and our people are having to endure. The common enemy of all humankind are private central banks issuing the public currency as a loan at interest. And as history will show, they will do anything, up to and including global wars, to keep their lock on yours and your children's future economic well-being and productivity. We're not a free society. Media will tell us that we're free, but we're not free. We are slaves. Our slave chains are made of paper, and that paper is the Federal Reserve note. Too few of our leaders have tried to stand up to this system of enslavement, usually with lethal results. But if all the people of the world at the same time stand up and say no more private central banks, it will come crashing down, just as slavery did, just as rule by divine right did, and then we'll be embarking on a new era in human history, where the emphasis on social development is on the people and not on the money junkies.
All right, folks, welcome back. And for those of you who had a chance to see this nice 45-minute compendium from Brother Michael Rivera, I got to give him kudos for putting this together about a year and a half ago. So I had Arianna, 83,000 hits, but that's another part of the construct. YouTube lies to the damn teeth on the numbers because hey, now, but they'll post all the numbers for maybe trainers all about the base no treble, but they won't post the real numbers for the real truth. They always hack the damn, because I got a lot of nice videos over at my house, and the numbers were up 25,000 one day and then it was 5,000 the next. So they do hack our YouTube to people that are superficial enough to look at the damn numbers and say, oh, it's only been seen so many times, so they say it might not be worth watching. That's the game that the nefarious ones play across the board. That's why we're creating other alternative constructs across the planet, like unseen.is and some other portals that will be coming forward. And other countries, actually, like Russia and stuff, are reconstructing their whole internet to bypass the bullshit of USA Inc. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
So, but what I want to talk about to my brothers and sisters, now that they've seen the 200-year history they never got in grade school, it's ironic that Obama, the corporation, the corporate head, the president is just a corporate construct, folks. His job is to keep the corporation rolling, and he's called out his best and brightest in the military, the upper echelon, the generals and admirals. Anybody that doesn't go along, get along. We can't have anybody with conscience over at the White House, because we can manipulate them pliably. But all these clowns, the circus that he put on in the game, like the head of Satan's sitting over with, he's got a head seat over at the FDA, which most people are unaware of, and guarantee you nobody knows that if you're eating the crap from Walmart, it's all endocrine disrupting garbage in cans. They have endocrine disruptors in them, so that's poisoning your vessel. But no, they're going to go one step further, Arianna, and they're actually going to spray the crops because they can accept the Agent Orange spraying. It won't kill the plants, but it's going to kill you over time because, you know, and I've lost way too many brothers in the Vietnam conflict for Agent Orange exposure. I was actually down in Florida helping a colonel buddy of mine out make liposomal vitamin C and alternative constructs that can fix the machine. I mean, you know, they all got duped into the game. They got duped, and he's. I got to have a heart-to-heart with this colonel and share with him how he got lied to. And he knows he's been lied to, and especially on the medical industrial complex. He let him nuclear his body because he didn't know no better, which destroys the DNA of your machine so your body can't get well. So I'm going to do a show on the medical industrial complex in the very near future, and I'm going to route them out a little bit. I'm going to raise the vibration a little bit, show the people irrevocable proof. Because when I put real links that people can follow in real time. After I get done with these shows, I will attach informations that people can go look for themselves. And this, I mean, look what's going on with the cannabis game in America. It's a game. You got Monsanto in bed with Uruguay to make genetically modified poisonous cannabis. That's why I'm telling you everybody need to be self-sufficient. That's why you get to go pay a lot for your muffler. That's a commercial from back in the 70s. See, because if you're not self-sufficient, then you're going to pay somebody else. But the problem is they got both sides of the coin covered, and they've got you coming and going, and they're feeding you poisonous crap. So I'm aligned with the best and the brightest, and Arianna, I'm a planet. You know how to do certain things. Master growers around the planet. I got my hemp textiles queen. I've got all sorts of players that are aligning for this shift, because the shift has hit the damn fan.
That's right.
Vibrational shift. Anyways, for all my brothers and sisters who are serving on Maple Drive in the military, share this link. This information's it's just a copy and a paste thing. When I repost it out onto the planet, I expect my brothers and sisters to share this stuff far and wide, and they can go reference the stuff themselves. I mean, it's really easy to find out. I mean, it's so easy to follow the money trail. Don't even get me on the shots and the medical crap. That's a whole other show. And I'm going to do a whole special show on the medical side. And, I think if I get Dr. Tent in the house, they'll listen to him. He does seminars across the country showing how the thimerosal, mercury, formaldehyde are compromising the immune system of our brothers and sisters across the planet. And it's been going on since the early 1900s, 1918. The oral polio vaccine was just a construct to change up the genetic structure of the masses to immune cancer. And he covers that really well. He's got a nice 2-hour video. Yeah, anybody can just look up Dr. Tent, T-E-N-T, like pup tent, Dr. Tent, and look that up on YouTube. And I promise you'll find his video about talking about 2 hours about the autoimmune deficiency upon the planet that's causing duress on the masses, butts all over the planet. And now we got the scumbags are us. Don't get me on. What's that? Who's that? Bill Gates. Yeah, Bill Gates, kiss my ass. You're a worthless piece of crap. Yeah, that all these shots getting in Africa, stuff like that is like anti-fertility shots to shut down them so they can't reproduce, because they think there's too many of us on the damn planet. But folks, there's more resources on this planet than God. And that's the reason for the Iraq war, the Libya attack. Matter of fact, nobody knows about Libya. What a beautiful country. Their people were actually getting a dividend check for the oil revenues generated from that country. The IMF didn't like that much because all their people were not slaves. They weren't bond slaves on the plantation. So the IMF had to go blow up their stuff, take their gold, wreck the country. And Iraq, the only reason they went to Iraq wasn't because of 9/11. Here's the memo, folks. Pay attention. It's all about the oil resources. And because they would denominate in American dollars, that's why they went and did the dirty deed back in 91 as well. Matter of fact, Saudi Arabia was caught slant drilling 3 times. And see, they have a 3 rule over there. And Iraq told them, you can't be slant drilling into our country, taking the resources. Well, that's when the IMF gets behind the war game, and they push their scam forward. So this is the history lesson nobody gets, Arianna, because they always see what they see on the idiot box. It's called mainstream media, and that's the propaganda machine, and that's why you'll never get the truth. If you're looking for the truth, you're in the right place.
That's
if this
right.
scares you, go back to the idiot box, and you go back to sleep. It's called cognitive dissonance. Anyway, I got excited. I can't help myself. They actually named a song after me in 1977. Warren Zevon did it. It's called "Excitable Boy." Yeah, we will look that up on YouTube. They're talking about Peter. Anyway, folks, on that note, I'm going to segue into some sort of solution, because there's always solutions to every side of the coin. But you got to be willing to open your eyes and your ears and see. Open that third eye because what you see here is not what you're really seeing. It's all.
But they can't open their third eye, Peter, if they're not eating right. Like you were saying, not going to Walmart and getting your food, not spraying it with Roundup. All that stuff intercedes with everything that you're telling them. They just have to listen. You can't go and eat all that kind of food, or it's not going to work. And you have to do your meditation to raise your vibration. It all goes hand in hand with one another.
Oh, you sound like you're into witchcraft. That's what the church would say. See, here, okay, let's get into the church for 2 seconds. That's another compromisation of the masses under the religiosity. First of all, God don't hate nobody, and He doesn't go to war with anybody. But this is why we get to all wars are banner wars. There's a war on for your mind, folks, and they're winning. But they don't have to be winning. We now have an alternative live stream media, which you're seeing right here. And we cover every topic under the sun. Matter of fact, they just opened up the door to the French side of the equation. I'm working on opening up the Spanish side of the equation with Brother Giant and QLP TV, because our brown brothers down south really need to get the memos, because they're all genuflecting on the camera, looking just on the damn blood statue. Mm-hmm. And for those think I'm a blasphemer, your Bible is nothing but an allegory. They got great stories, but they're all parables and they're all analogies. So I know this is a hard pill to swallow. I mean, it's just it took me a while to warm up. If you don't believe me, go watch Brother Bill on hiddenmeanings.com. He breaks it apart really nicely. And one of my brothers who's on the Jesus fish called me a blasphemer. I said, thank you very much. I really don't care.
Me too. They do the same to me too. What religion are you? I'm not a religion.
Yeah, you know, I can't deprogram. Well, they got to deprogram themselves. This is a deprogramming. So if you want programming, you go over to the lamestream media. If you want deprogramming and you want truth, come on over here. The water's fine.
Well, and you'll learn the truth. And if you don't want to and you're being called to, then the earth, spirit people will be sent in your life to pull you out of the matrix. And you'll either do it humbly or you'll crash and burn and get skid marks, because they're going to make you happen. And the more the vibration goes up, the higher you're going to go and the more force you're going to have behind it. Plain and simple.
Yeah, it's like the laws of physics, inverse energies. So the harder they push, which they're pushing nice and hard now,
right? And
it's called blowback, and it's starting to it's actually pushing the wake up call. So the harder they push their agenda, the more it's coming back to the other side where the wake up call is coming, because it's so in their face. They're saying, "How did we get here? This is part of the wake up call."
And then you'll have a harder wake up too. I mean, you'll be left reeling with a mass confusion that you're going to have. So better heed the call and see the synchronicities than not, plain and simple, because Mother Earth's incarnating and we have to keep up with her. I mean, she's tired of it. Humanity's just about killed our ecosystem, and the government's doing it as well. Look at all the chemtrails we have out there. They're trying to kill us, people. Wake up. They're trying to poison us. Quit eating that crap. You know, go buy what you need to go buy, and everything else plant. Take herbal extracts that you plant yourself. Become self-sufficient. That's the plan, is that we all come in to each other, set up our own communities, and love free-heartedly and open and willingly. Love doesn't have a restriction, but humanity's taught us that we're supposed to.
Well, they've kept us separated by country. They kept us separated by race, color, creed, all the crap that keeps everybody binded up and keeps them at a war on in their mind.
That's right. But they have to realize that it's all in their mind, but the subconscious knows better. Yep. Don't try to make sense of everything, because when you quit trying to make sense of everything, then everything will make sense.
Yeah.
Come out of your subconscious.
Well, you know, I did my 10 years in, and I seen a lot of fractured souls. So, you know, I didn't see any war, but I saw the fractured souls, you know, the fractured spirits everywhere. They spit them out as disposable human resources. They collect a $10 million policy on all the ones that go to the boneyard. For the IMF, that's the International Monetary Fund, collects on an insurance policy. They underwrite these wars, and they're underwriting them on the asses of the masses that will play this game.
That's right. That's right. And then you mean nothing, and the families mean nothing that are left behind. Absolutely nothing. You're sent out as a pawn. They use what little time you have, and these people's families are left in mourning, and that's where my job as a light worker comes in, is that I speak to those souls that are left over who don't even know that they're gone, and they're trying to connect. Earth's going to catch up, spirit's going to catch up, we're all going to catch up with one another. And if you don't, then I feel sorry for you if you're left behind. Heed the call, people, because it's right there in your face.
Yeah, what was that movie, Left Behind by Kirk Cameron? Yeah, what a crock of shit that was. Kirk Cameron from, what was that show back in the 80s? Anyways, was it Growing Pains? I think it was Growing Pains.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Well, folks, the only growing pains we got is the ones in our unconscious mind, because we're unconscious. If you become conscious, the growing pains are really not really growing pains. It's realigning your energies on the planet and doing something good.
Mm-hmm. Clarification of yourself, clearing your chakras, becoming anew, taking out the old and bringing in new. That's what it's all about. Shedding your old skin, coming to terms with who you are, coming to terms with the illusions, and putting the new stuff in place. And it's easier than what you think it is, because if you allow yourself to do it, then spirit's going to help you. Plain and simple. The universe is going to help you. And then you come into a world of abundance.
Yeah, there's abundance. I mean, like I say, they've sold everybody, but we don't have enough of this, that, and the other. That's the biggest scam perpetrated upon the masses. Just like the global warming scam. Oh, well, we have it's weather changing. Yeah, the weather's always changing, folks. It's a scam. They can't control the weather, and it's not that we're getting hotter or colder or whatever. It's just part of the transition of the Earth's atmosphere. It's called energetic shifting. But they sold already bullshit on that idiot box, and they actually buy off on this. And now they're taxing the air that you breathe in other capacities. Boy, that would be really screwed up if they could tax the air you breathe. Well, they are doing it. They got the carbon tax. That's so we're filling coffers of the IMF for a scam. And so all of these sprayings, folks, and when they spray in the chemtrails, look up once in a while, and that's aluminum, boron, and strontium. And they're negative adjuncts that actually attach to the brain stem, because aluminum actually has a brain blocker, so the pineal gland can't open up. It ain't working on Peter, sweetie.
No.
Because I do the alternatives that actually break down the crap in your head, so my brain works. And
that's right. You have to decalcify, though, your pituitary gland or whatever. You have to decalcify it. I mean, it's corroded with tons of stuff that people didn't realize back in the day, that it's actually an eye, people. You can astro project. Separation is an illusion. We can all meet up. We're all frequency, just like spirit, just like everything. It's either, spiritual energy that you can see, or it's not. Everything combines together, though, and makes the universe go round and round.
Yeah, well, let me talk about electromagnetic flow for a second, because the body has what's called a sino-atrial node. Why would Navy Doc know that? That's your ticker in your heart. So when mommy and daddy got together, they created you, and you were nothing but a heartbeat away. And before you even had limbs, you were a heartbeat. That's because you have what's created as a sino-atrial node. The creator knew how to create the body, and until the body comes online and becomes self-sufficient, you're in that nice warm water of mommy, and then you grow, and then she brings you forward. But that's a part of your electromagnetic flow. The body is electric, because without that, you're not upright.
That's right.
That's why, if you ever see an emergency situation, somebody gets hit by electricity, you got to bring them back by a shock, because the heart goes into ventricular fibrillation, which is just vibrating, but it's not beating, and you got to bring it back online. So that's the reason. So that's another more proof about the body being electric for some people that are in denial. You have an electromagnetic flow. You have a radius of energy. Most people are totally unaware of this. That's why I want to get Nasir Harriman on the show, because he explains that stuff really nicely.
Well, and if anyone wants any information, like I've been talking to you about, the Celestine prophecies, it goes into, there's 9 insights. The first is the first awakening, but the 9th is right where we're at right now. And then there's a 10th insight as well. But right now we're in the time of the 9th insight, where everybody starts to wake up and starts to pull out and realize that you can be self-sufficient. And that's why the government is scared of people like us, which they shouldn't be. We just don't have to have world leaders telling us what to do. Humanity in itself can take care of itself like we used to when we grow everything and we take care of one another. But instead of allowing us to come into one, they want to keep us separated because they want to keep us sheep and doing what they want us to do.
Yep. That's why you got all the old folks' homes. Nobody takes care of their mommies and daddies anymore. They throw them away in some friggin' senior community center to die. I mean, and that's a separation of heart. See, so that's not, so the vessel gets to go over there and die in some arbitrary community center with all the others going to the boneyard, because most of them are separated from their heart. They created the hearts at the beginning, and now they've been thrown away. Whereas in Japan, their culture, at least on that point, like what they do, is Mama-san and Papa-san, they stay together and they all live together in the same community, and they share with each other, and they share wisdom and truth and heart, you know?
That's right. And when we can see past those illusions that man has put in front of us, and we can actually see the beauty in everything, then that's where we come into the open-hearted circuit. That's the beautiful thing about awakened people, is that we choose not to see a difference. We're not different. We all have souls. We all vibrate on the same frequency. It's all in our makeup and the way we intertwine. And when you can see past religion or race or creed and all of that stuff, or, cultural difference, and see the beauty in everything, then that's when we're more open, and when we can compute more, and humanity can come back to where we spawned from and where we came from. And we all fell from the sky, people. We all fell from the sky. We're all here for a purpose. Earth is the only planet we come into where we have amnesia, and that's what it's about, is waking up and realizing where your soul and what your soul purpose is here. And all of us, you and I, and all of the part of the awakening are here for that reason, to push this movement. Don't be scared. We're going to be okay. We're supported by Earth, and we're supported by the universe. No matter what happens, this was our plan. It was already written before we came in and what we did this. That's why I'm here right now, and that's why Peter's here right now.
Well, let me share with you. I've integrated with my brothers and sisters from all walks of life, from Ecuador, Mexico, Kuwait. I had some when I was in El Paso, Texas, in '95, doing cable contracts, tying in the light. So the light worker in a different way. My next door neighbors were from Kuwait. They were military, and they were super nice. They would invite me over. I would go break bread with them. I go sit down in their culture, have tea with them, and they had beautiful hearts. There is no separation. It's the separation that's created by the powers that be to keep us all thinking we're different. But when you bring in the love vibration, you meet up with some beautiful people across the planet. And I love my brown brothers, my black brothers. I don't see color. I see heart. And that's what they don't want you seeing, folks.
That's right. We all have to see past the illusions that we've been taught. It goes back to, like you said, when your mother gave birth to you in your heart and you take your first breath. That's where you have to start from, is you have to relearn everything that you've been taught. And the sooner you do it, the better you are, because the less you have to compute and the less confusion you're going to have. But always know that you're supported by the divine, because this is what we're doing right now, is we're becoming more of a spirit. You die from your flesh, which is your ego, which is your vessel or your cage, and you're becoming more of a spirit, because what's going to happen is Earth's going to pull away. You're first wave, second wave, or third wave. Third wave are our children, and we're paving the way for them, which the first wave paved the way for us. But Earth's going to pull away. The heaven on earth that you already hear, that's already happening, people. That's why the vibration's going up, because angels and everything else spirit is pulling us that way. You can either be a part of it or not. Don't think that it's not going to happen, though, because it's happened. And all this stuff that you're taught in the Bible, it's already happening, but it's a man's perspective on it, or what they think that they've been taught. It's the little things that are happening. Somebody wants to see a man walking on water. That's not going to happen. But if you pay attention to the sinks that you have, that shows you're on your right path and that you're on the right vibration with the earth.
Yep. Oh, what a ride. Anyways, yeah, they don't want to talk about chakras and realigning your energies and all this other stuff. And you know what? Too late. And so, I've been taking this walk exponentially much, much quicker over the last 3 years. I didn't even know about sacred geometry 3 years ago. I totally understand sacred geometry. I never took sacred geometry. And anyways, so it's all about vibration and pitch. That's why I get everything musically. I'm very musically inclined. I was a percussionist for 20 years, sang a little bit of a cappella 16th century cantatas back in my youth in Spanish, French, German, and I got it. It's all vibration and pitch. It's all about energy. It's all about realigning your energies and going to ground and going to peace, not going to war, angering your mind, because there's a war on for the mind, and they've been really successful, and they pitted one against another. Let's talk about my feminine sisters for a second. See, neither one of us is superior to another. We walk hand in hand, side by side. You are the yin, they got the yin and the yang. We are collectively coming together in spirit and heart, and there is no conflict. And so, for my feminine sisters out there, Brother Peter loves to share the love vibration with the planet, and this is where we're at, and this is what we're all here to do. Come together. Nobody's above another. But they don't teach that over in the Middle East, do they?
No, they don't, unfortunately. Unfortunately, they don't. That's why we've got to break past the illusions of culture and what we've been taught. Just like I have a harder time with what I do. I've had to walk away from my mainstream family because, the religion aspect of it. I'm a medium. You know what I mean? I get that. I talk to spirit, but, I've lost friends along the way and everything like that. But the universe applies anew with it. But if you go back with what it is, they think that I talk to the devil. It's the same thing. Keeping someone a slave underneath these prejudices and illusions. And that doesn't happen anymore. It's not time for that. We're all supposed to come together and see past these earth vessels. Because all it is a rotting earth suit. It's what I came into. It's going to die off, but your energy still continues. Energy is infinitive. It carries on. You see the sinks out in nature, people. If you guys will pay attention, a hummingbird, it's beautiful. But 8, infinity is forever. And a hummingbird flies in a double 8. The universe will show it to you if you're willing to put in the time and become enlightened on the small things.
Yep. That's why they never talk about the numbers. They don't teach sacred geometry. They don't teach about ley lines across the planet.
Right.
All the places I like to go. So I'm going to bring some stellar guests in to cover, like I say, Nasir, he's Mr. Quantum Physics. This guy gets shit up, and he knows how to explain it in down-to-earth terms for everybody to understand if they're awake, if they're not conscious.
Right. But Peter, they've got to become conscious. It's all in their face. Some people I've learned actually talking to more people lately that they are awakened, but they're not allowing their mind to be stretched because they don't want to put in the work. You have to face the darkness in order to come to the light. And all of that is a nice way of saying that you're getting rid of the old and becoming a new. Relearning yourself. Why wouldn't you want to know who you are? Everybody is born with a spiritual gift. Some people can see into the future. I get glimpses of that as well. But also, you have to relearn those things. It's discomforting, but it's also comforting once you come through it. It's just allowing your mind to do what it was meant to do and not letting people take away the power that you have. We were made as amazing, beautiful creatures that have so infinite of a possibility. You just have to be willing to go there. But some people aren't because it's scary. Why is it scary? Because you've been taught to be scared.
Yeah.
Why go to war? What we've been talking about, because they're proud of their country. Well, then be proud of who you are as well. Don't go to war. You know why they're wanting to go to war? Because they're fighting over money, which money is just an illusion. It's a man-made thing. What they're really doing is it's a power struggle for feeding on each other's energy, psychic attack, and energy vampirism. That's all it equates to. But here's $1 to supplement for that energy.
Yeah, a piece of worthless paper, because the paper is not, you see, anything that comes from the ground is good, i.e. like gold, silver, that comes from the earth, the elements. But guess what? Arianna, we are part of the elements. We're good as gold. That's what I tell people. The substance of life is you. You are the source of life, the source of energy, the source of goodness. You are, because you know what? You can go out and make somebody smile every day. You can go out and do something on purpose. It's the little things that can change everything.
Shining for your brother. If someone's having a bad day, give them a smile. Sit there and let someone tear and cry to you. It's the little things. And when we share the good energy and we pull someone out of the bad energy and out of their psychic attack that they're having, then that amplifies and that sends a ripple effect throughout the rest of the world and throughout the rest of the universe, and the healing begins, and then that raises vibration. Just like, we all do that. We all have our good days and our bad days. That's going to happen. But be there and lend a hand to your brother or your sister. Because when you do that and you take the time and you build that personal connection with an open circuit, then you're helping, and the universe is going to bring you in, whether it's love or it's money. What the universe is going to supply if you help it supply, and that's why we're here.
Yeah, and I take an interest in my brothers and sisters that are in pain on the planet. I've got friends all over the planet, and I can sense when there's something out of whack, and I need to give them some of my time. That's my energy source, and I give it willingly, freely, from the bottom of my heart, because that's what I'm supposed to do, and I don't have to. It's what I want to. See, it's my free will act indeed.
But see, then that shows that you're in tune with the universe and its vibration. And when you allow yourself, see, that's what people don't understand, is when you allow yourself to open up to that, the beauty that comes into your life. You can hear that person's name in your head, and then you start to feel them. That's an empathic sense on you as well. When you see that, and then you pull up and you see that person on your phone, you're like, oh my God, did that happen by coincidence? No, that happened because you allowed that porthole to be opened up to you unconditionally and loving. We have been taught, especially America as a society, to put restrictions on love. Especially women have, especially it's been harder for a woman, but we're not bad. We're good people. Spirit wants us to know that we have to see ourselves above the clouds. They want us to spread our wings and fly and be free, because we're supposed to be free. That's what we're born here for, is to be free.
Well, and what's nice is it's Matt Kahn. He's out of Washington, Mattkahn. Matter of fact, I was watching one of his videos. I've been following him for a year and a half. He's out of Washington State. What a beautiful soul. It's a man who gets it. He talks about intent. What is your intent? If your intent is good and you let it fly, you let it come forward, all of a sudden, all this beautiful stuff comes your way. See, I'm bringing my intent forward on the planet, and it's, oh my goodness, it's what a hell of a ride. I mean, I'm so excited because I wake up every day with a new energetic shift, because I've opened all the portals, because I put my heart out with good intent. And that's what I run with, is my good intent. And when people understand that your thoughts and your energy, your intent, if you put it forward, it changes everything. But if you have bad intent, like scumbags are us, or the nefarious ones, that's why they don't get no love. That's why they don't know who they are. That's why they can't look in the mirror, and they don't like what they see looking back, because they're sort of soulless entities. They've lost their way.
Where it has to start is looking in the mirror. You have to love the person that you're looking at before you can love anybody else the right way. And like you said, it's your intent. You're doing it unconditionally and loving, because you don't expect anything in return. And that's why you're gathering all these people, because you're being a source of love for them. the same way with me. I come on the circuit and here I am. And before I know it, I have friends in India and, like you said, everywhere, England, but it's where your portholes are and where the spirit wants you to be and where the universe wants you to be. And we're the leaders and we're supposed to bring these people in. And we can either love them or love them from a distance. But realize, people, when you're loving them from a distance, still send them love. That doesn't mean shut them away and ignore them. That means send them good energy, because we allow our energy. Our energy is infinite. It can go anywhere. Just because you can't talk to that person because they're on a lower vibration or it fell off your vibration doesn't mean that once they're done cycling and they learn their lesson through whatever life phase they're going through, doesn't mean that they won't come back up on your vibration. Give them the love that they need while they need it, even if it can't be eye to eye and person to person.
Right. Well, anyways, it's I've when I look into eyes of others, I see myself looking back now. Isn't that nice?
It's in your image.
Because when I see the beauty in you, I see the beauty in me. See, that's the whole point. It's not just a female male thing, but I see the beauty. It's like when I got to go hang out with the Colonel and share the love and make liposomal vitamin C. He didn't need me to make his liposomal C. He knew how to make it already, because I had a 16-minute video I made him go watch. He just wanted to share his heart with somebody.
That's right. That's right. It's about the companionship. Being awakened is such a beautiful thing, but people choose to, I've seen the term awaken and lonely. You're not lonely, people. Reach out. You have more than what you've ever had before in your whole entire life. If you can see the beauty behind it and allow people in, then they're going to enrich your life in ways that you've never had before. Let go of the people who aren't there. Choose to love them from a distance and bring in the new, because the new is enriched. They're more loving, and then they'll help you along your way, so we can all ripple out throughout the rest of the universe in all the dimensions, not just Earth, but the unseen as well. I live in a lot of the unseen because I see the unseen.
Right. Well, that's what I like. I was listening to Matthew yesterday. See, I always go to these right portals. And I'm a very busy man. I'm in multiple portals on the planet. But I know when I'm supposed to go take a look at something. If it comes up, my spirit tells me, hey, snap out of it, go watch it. See, there's a reason. And he's talking about abundance. And there's abundance everywhere. You can have abundance of time. You can have abundance of you can have an abundance of pain if you want abundance of pain. You can have abundance of truth. You can have an abundance of heart. You make the choice by your intent.
And perspective. If you're going through a hard time, then it might be something that you've accidentally manifested because you've had your mind in the wrong place. Go ahead, realize, pull yourself out, look at everything in the 360, like what we're doing right now. We're talking a little bit about spirit. We're learning about the government. You and I both have two totally different life paths going on, but they still coincide with one another. Like I said earlier to you, you're showing because you have your military background, where I'm talking to their spirit. So they want this to come forward because they know that because they've been reborn into, they died for this. They want their story to be told. So here I am sitting in and telling you, yes, they're unhappy. Look at the suffering. But if we can end the suffering and transmute it into love, then within that dimension of the spirit and the earth healing as well, that raises the vibration such a good. We're on a fast track, people. It's happening. It's crazy.
Yeah, get on the fast ride, because it's right. This train is rolling with or without you. And mine's not going to Camp FEMA either. I see all these people giving over to fear porn, the Jade Helm scam. See, because you keep watching the Idiot Box, folks. They're going to feed you the crap to keep you in a lower vibration, to tap into your energy in that state of conflict.
To scare you. And when you learn to choose to pull out of that, it's a conscious decision, though. You have to make the conscious decision, learn what you have, and realize that what you're going through is a shedding of the old. You have to close those doors on the old folks, people. You have to close it in order to make room for the new. That's just your angels walking you through it, and spirit saying, here you go. But you're never alone. Even when you don't have another human being to make contact with, call out to your angels, because they're there. We're provided with a best friend from birth. They're assigned to you. Your soul comes down we incarnate and they stick with you, whether it's a past relative or literally an angel on your shoulder. You're never alone. Everybody, I call it a soul posse, because I have my own personal soul posse. They're my best friends. They keep me safe. I can't tell you how many times they've kept me safe. But understand you're never alone. And when you wake up and you feel the love vibration and you choose to love another, not for what they can do for you, but just for being there for you, and you choose to be grateful, that opens up all kinds of abundance. But always remember, the more you have, the more you bless. Whether it's money, whether it's love, whether it's knowledge, you share it all, or it's not a gift. You have to share gifts.
That's why all the banker whores, what are they storing this up for? I mean, we could fix all this crap like that. I mean, how many billions and billions and how many trillions have they wasted on this raping and pillaging of all these other foreign countries that had nothing to do with anything, to do anything wrong, because they wouldn't give over to their power construct from the Vatican on down? Well, it's the game's over.
I mean, to the church and follow the example of Jesus. When Jesus walked the streets, he wasn't in the tabernacle. He was flipping the table saying, why are you doing this in my Father's house? Because he wanted everything to be changed. I just don't understand the mechanics of regular mentality anymore. The more you have, who was that person in Seattle who just cut he's the founder of the company, just cut his company, his own personal salary to $70,000 a year.
I saw that.
His people a raise. Now that's servanthood leadership, folks. He wanted to give his people a better quality of life. Why isn't the rest of humanity? You can't tell me that man is secretly not awake, but he's scared to come out with the rest of the information that he knows. But here you and I are trying to push up the love vibration and make people aware. I'm tired of it. Of sitting back and not doing it. It's not going to happen. We were put here for a reason. We're awake to let other people be informed and to aspire and enrich other people to do it.
There's opportunities everywhere to do something good today. Everywhere. When I just take my power walks, even whatever, a gentle smile and direct eye contact. Just a hey, how you doing today? I mean, I know it's simple shit, but you start with the simple shit, folks, and that's when you go to the bigger stuff. Just like when I was traveling across the country, I got to share the love with 2 homeless guys. My heart told me exactly what to do. I didn't have hardly any cha-ching in my pocket, but my heart told me they're on the street and homeless. So I took them down to the coffee shop, and I took them for breakfast. And I got to see 2 spirits glow right in my presence, just from that simple little act. It was
you were put there. The universe puts you there. You listen to your soul and you listen to spirit talking in your ear. That's all it takes, people. Not everybody has to hear voices like I do or see spirit. Just open yourself up to be a channel, because we're all channelers of spirit. You don't have to see them like I do. Just be open enough to hear them. Allow them to come in, and they'll guide you the rest of the way. And that's your soul path. Plain and simple. But you enrich those people, and then they went out and told the story to their brother or their sister on the street with them, and it gave them hope.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It warmed my heart. I was glowing not because what I did, but because I sat down with them and ate breakfast with them. I didn't just buy it and then say, catch you later. No, I wanted to know who they were inside. I wanted to know their soul. So I said, let's go down and have some breakfast. I'm waiting for my train, and let's go share the love. And my goodness, they were glowing. They were on top of the world, and they were chattering away, both of them. We were just so happy because you know why? Because I gave love to the heart. It wasn't about that was just an open door, the food. But the heart was, I sat down with them and gave them my time, my energy, my source. And I cared enough to show them my love.
See, but people don't understand when they do that, they're helping the earth incarnate. It's the simple things and allowing somebody in that is helping push the love vibration that we're preaching. That those simple acts of kindness, as a leader, you serve people. We're sent here to serve people, to lead them. You have to serve them, like you sitting down and telling their story. You allowed them to transmit healing into their heart, where how many other people I sat and watched a video the other day. There was this company that was watching how many people on New York City walked past this homeless child that was shivering in a trash bag. You know what I mean? It wasn't really that, but it was, you know who stopped Peter? Another homeless person, and gave him his coat. Not the people who were walking by hurrying to their jobs. People, if you got 25 cents in your pocket, go buy them a cup of coffee. If you got a coat, I know that you probably got
Now,
five coats.
probably $25 a cup now because of the dollar ain't worth shit.
Right. True.
You know what I mean?
But
I'm being facetious when I say that, but yeah, okay. But the point is duly taken. Like I say, if you have an opportunity to do something and you don't do it, that's bad mojo on you folks. Anyways, I'm not trying to guilt you, but you know what? Your heart's telling you something and you're not listening.
That's right.
Anyways, good thing I don't get excited.
It's all the same thing. People just open up and see it, that everything that you've been taught. Pull out a TV, quit being afraid, plain and simple. We're all here for one great mission that's aligning with all of us together, whether you're spiritual, whether you're, we're all spiritual, but whether your facts are lined out for you, you'll know, you'll remember, and then you get to come together with someone like me and Peter, and we find a common ground and both of our stories to be told.
Anyways, on that note, we are about. There is no such thing as time, but our time construct is we've shared the love today. At the same time, I know I started out on a very strong rant, but sometimes Peter's got to go there. So for those who are allergic to four-letter adjectives, I'm sorry, but at the same time, this is where I get my passion going, and sometimes I got to let the fur fly a little bit to get my points across.
That's right.
Sometimes a little smack upside the head without being a smack upside the head, because it's a reality check, folks. This is a wake-up call. So as a Navy doc, I'm telling you, it's time to change this paradigm. I've been there, done that. I am not anti-military. I'm anti-bad behavior, going over and stealing resources from other countries under the guise of protectionism. You've been sold a lie, and it's time to wake up and grow up, and we need to all grow up, because we got to put away the things of children and become adults at one point in our lives. And you don't need a daddy. You need to take care of yourself. And this is what they've taught us, how to be dependent and not independent.
That's right.
Anyways, on that note, I share the love with my planet, my brothers and sisters. I thank you for showing up today. Arianna, what a beautiful spirit. Thank you for stepping into the house. And folks, that's a wrap. And I will catch you on Friday. I guarantee it'll be another fast ride at Planet Peter on CCN. Thank you for showing up. Thank you, sweetheart.
Thank you.
I love you.
Mm-hmm.